And we're recording. Welcome everyone. I think this is meeting number 19 of the Vegan World 2026 Collective Intelligence. And I'm looking at my agenda down here below. So we start with the admin portion. And I have to remember what that means. That
attendance.
The A is attendance, so we can all see who is in attendance here. D is duration. This meeting will go until 5 p.m. at the latest, 5 p.m. Pacific time at the latest. The minutes is the recording for the last meeting, which is on the Vegan World 2026 YouTube page. Info, does anyone have any outside info that they would like to share at this point in the meeting? Oh, and Shankar, we are going to talk about the codes if that's it. You want to talk? Okay, can we, well, that's the first item on the agenda. If it's that or something else?
Yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah.
Cool.
I can present whenever you guys want. Like, is it okay if I go, I can go, or else I can go later too. All right.
Well, so the next meeting is just next week, same time. So now we're done with admin and let's move on to Shankar's point.
Yes, I still have to come up with the image. There's still a lot of thoughts coming in, but it's all it requires is only a public response. Just go to the link and say, hey, I think in my industry, I need an X code. And I'm still open with the word. Anybody can use plant-based, or somebody can use vegan, or whatever industry they represent, they can do. If somebody wants to give a very full-fledged, that link also has an option to attach. Like if somebody really want to write a white paper, or somebody want to give a professional paper, something they can. Or sometimes you just want to comment a one-liner, like, hey, I'm a mom and pop shop. I just want to include, I would be so happy to put my next code under this vegan or something, or likely if there is one vegan or next code, it'll be awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. So just some context on this, since I know some people weren't here in previous meetings. So it's NAICS. And is this something, so Shankar is working on an initiative to create a vegan specific NAICS code, I think is what it would be.
NAICS code with Bureau of Labor Statistics?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I used to do population statistics and census work. So I'm familiar with all those things.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think maybe Jessica can even, somebody who's familiar will really get excited if I could say that, yeah. So far, there is none for NAICS code for veganism.
Mm-hmm.
So more you categorize as an industry, a lot of activities can be classified under that. Once a lot of activities are classified under that, you get a good like negotiating power, lobby power, and everything. Like so, and again, I'm open to. I'm not telling any system like a capitalism, socialism. That's why I dropped the word capital. I kept only the economic activity, core establishment, goods and service, workforce. This can fit almost in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Exchange, currency, everything like can be totally like what you call can be brought in later, or if you can show like, hey, this works, we continue to switch. And another thing also, right now they measure establishment pollution, or we can even make carbon footprint as one of the norm. Like that will be definitely, it'll be like a lot of industry might come, or they might be very innovative to, I see the point. I know in my industry I'm not there, but how can I do there? So so that metrics can be established further. That's the long term. And next is we can do it in North America. The same thing will get attention all over the world. So then it can establish as a standard, or we can take it further.
Is this a project that you are working on specifically, or that you're trying to support something else that you learned about?
This is I do in my everyday work
Ah,
I'm doing.
yeah.
Yet I never saw something in vegan world. That's
Yeah.
what amazed me.
Yeah.
And being with you guys gave me that motivation. I want to thank all of you. Like that thought is like because maybe I wouldn't have thought if I was not discussing with you guys. So that chain of thought helped me to do like how come there is like there is a chicken, there is a vegan chicken. Like something exists in the vegan world. Like something always there is an so right now I'm looking at, oh wait a minute, there's nothing here. It is there. Maybe it exists as a food. Under food, if you go, it exists as but veganism is not just food, right?
Right.
Like it goes across the industry. That's why I was taking example. People normally say like gluten free. Gluten free is just a food. For me, gluten free cannot be like a principle or like a compassionate principle. But veganism, I can, if I use the next code, I can, medical industry, they can use. We are a clinic, doctor clinic, we will do only plant-based nutrition something. Or we are a dietitian counseling, we can tag it. I can say we are a shoe industry, we sell shoes, but we sell only leather or non-leather shoes or vegan. And so that I can in fact, like for example, I could be a caterer. I can just say I do only vegan foods. So I can go and tag myself with that next code. And when you fill your tax return on the top left, you would have definitely filled. I don't know, it applies for nonprofit. Uh, Nonprofit, I don't know because they have a category, but most of the profit entities they will put that next code on the top. So that gives the. I think Jessica might be able to explain how they all roll up for the census statistics and everything.
Cool. Well, yeah, I wasn't sure if you were working on that with someone else or it was just your idea.
Yeah, one point I forgot. Actually, it's a complex work. At this point, all I'm doing is only the outreach
Right.
because this is like I cannot. It's so much to convince among ourselves to take a plan. It's little hard. It's not that this is an industry. Everybody is like, for example, somebody who runs a business full time, vegan business, and they know much better. So they are much serious. So the choice is with them. So this is only outreach. Go and submit your comments. More we get the enough mass of response. The simple answer could be no. If I go and looked at the previous response, a lot of people have asked in different industry. They got a simple answer. Oh, thank you for the comment. At this point, we cannot. But we have created enough keyword search to get the attention.
Right.
So definitely by vegan, they give 4 years, 5 years. This published report will come, next code update publication will come in 2021. So from that 4 years or something is 26. Probably we can definitely get an industry classification by that time.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. So no is also an awesome answer because it's a choice. So that's what. Thank you. So the outreach is the part I'm saying. At this point, the scope is outreach.
Yeah. So it would be to any vegan business, really, right?
Anybody. It could be institution. Anybody can reply.
Awesome. Well, I think we should. And then what's the deadline again? It's in.
It's 27th, April 27th, 11:59 a.m. Eastern time zone. Yeah.
Have you already sent something out to all of Basecamp or just a portion of Basecamp?
I only did it in the new economy group, more like, hey, what we are trying to do. That's all. So this one, it requires like, for example, the thing that comes in my mind is like one image. Probably, I'm taking Facebook as one social media example. Then put the actual link where people have to go. They call it as a docket. Then you just in that image you say, hey, you know next code. There is no next code for vegan industry. Whatever industry you are there, please go and put a comment requesting wherever it is fits. Just go and do it. So anybody who is interested, company might reply, or some people. If somebody is really a scholarly economist, they will write a big paper. Totally fine. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to keep this on the agenda to keep talking about it too. And if anyone else has any ideas for how to help Shankar in this initiative, we still have some time on the agenda for this.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
I'm in the new economy group as well, and Shankar brought it up, and I thought it was a initiative of that group. This is something that you've been doing already, right? You just used the opportunity to bring it up in the course of the meetings of New Economy.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not doing separately. Like this was just like a thought came while I was searching. So I was like, okay, definitely, why don't I bring it to the new economy? Because this is definitely creating a industry, or you can call the word new economy, like classifying everything under vegan. Like that's why. So that's a simple thing. If I can say, like, yeah.
It also applies to normalizing vegan food. It would probably make sense in that group. But that group hasn't had any meetings yet, so I guess it's just as well you brought it up in New Economy. And I wonder if this is a good opportunity to ask Sailesh how, when an idea comes up, something that's actionable, something that can, hit the road running and gather people to help with the idea. How does that work? Can New Economy Study Group spawn a task force that accomplishes Shankar's goals, and you can bring anybody on board? He's obviously the organizer of that concept.
Yeah,
How?
that's exactly how it would work. So let's say, see, the purpose of a study group is to become a task force. And to do that, so the way it worked is you have to come up with a scope and a purpose of your project and meet the 6 criteria, which is what, we were trying to change that to a vision, mission, aims, culture, and so on. But originally it was just scope, purpose, and the 6 criteria. 6 criteria were, distinct identity, broad adoption potential, compatibility with the 7 core shifts. So there are 6 things that I had listed as part of the process group. Okay. So it was also technical feasibility, resource feasibility, and then there was a bio, socio, psycho, spiritual accessibility. I mean, in a way it's saying, is this a relevant work that needs to be done? So you have to justify that, right? And then bring it to the collective intelligence group, and we debate it here and we approve or not, right? That's how a study group becomes a task force. And then the job of the task force is to write a document about what they're doing and how people can implement it, right, going out. So for that, we are looking at Slack and Kipwise as a platform for doing those documents in with multiple people having to, being able to edit it, lots of reviewers. So you have a process set in place so that what comes out of that, the public face of it, is something that everyone will say is high quality because it has met all of the requirements, right? So you're putting in place certain things to make sure that we are not talking at cross purposes. We are putting everything together so that they all work well together. It's all interoperable. That's the idea. Then the movement can accelerate, right? Because otherwise, everyone now is working on their own and they're creating their own things. So we are having a meeting. So we are going to have a summit for the next, starting Monday for 18 days. And then we have a meeting after that where we're going to put our minds together and figure out can we get all the vegan organizations to come together around this goal of a vegan world by 2026. Now that the coronavirus is waking us up. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking with Jane Miller-Mitchell about that too. But anyway, that's the process I was envisioning, right? Now, when people said, let's do sociocracy and let's do vision, mission, aims, I said, okay, let's try that out, see if it works or not. If not, I know what worked before. We can always go back to that.
in this case, new economy this isn't an initiative that would encompass everything that new economy is set out to do.
Right.
So would this be a case of a good idea that you create a new project that Shankar is organizing, make it a study group, he writes the white paper, and then it becomes a task force?
No. He just writes a scope, purpose, and the 6 criteria, and then he gets it approved as a task force. See, you can form hierarchies now, meaning, so we have, this is for the Vegan World 2026 project, right? The whole thing. Now, NAICS could be a sub study group under New Economy. New Economy is so broad, right? There's lots of work to be done under New Economy. Right, so you could say, first thing is we have to go get a NAICS code for approved by the Bureau of Statistics. And so that could be a separate study group under that. And then that comes and reports back to the New Economy. It doesn't have to go all the way up to VCI, right? The New Economy comes to VCI and says, these are the things that we are doing. These multiple things we are doing. So in a way, VCI becomes a place where we are sort of making sure that we are addressing all the holes. Okay, so that in a way is what I'm envisioning.
Hi, Jackie.
Shankar, did you need help with this? Is this something that you would like to appeal for people to help, or is it something that you kind of get how it works and there's not much anybody else is able to contribute?
Can you guys hear me?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, my screen froze. I don't know whether I muted or not. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I'll go after Sally. Go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, clearly, Jessica can contribute to that. The more people are on that who would say, I'm interested in that, I'll go work with Shankar on it and make it happen. That's right.
And they might not necessarily be in the New Economy group. There may be, like I said, it fits in with normalizing vegan food.
Right.
So what happens next? Shankar is organizing the project. So what is there any way that we can help?
Yes. So already I came up with a document, kind of like seeing what aspects, what are we doing, when are we doing, how are we doing, and where it relates to the entirety. And kind of I got like a simple gist. Then I have one Excel or a spreadsheet in that same link, which kind of gives whatever I collect, I'm just tossing it there, more like a worksheet, which is collaborative, and anybody can give comments on this thing. So that's pretty much here. So I will probably present it. I just have to reword the document, like how Sailesh said, aligning to the topic here. So I'll keep it like more like sounds to me like a simple proposal within this thing. I can do that. Then I will keep it. The only help needed is if somebody wants to present, there is when it goes to the public register, it's a simple command, it's a high quality command. If somebody is very sophisticated on the economic terms, coding the policy or trends and everything, if somebody can give a thing, I'll give it to them. So it is like, I'm one person commenting, anybody can go and comment. So the more we get the critical mass, it's good. So you don't have to.
Is there sort of a template of what you want the comment to look like that you could provide? That way folks that don't have really that background, they could still go in and essentially copy and paste a comment in that fits towards what the goal is?
It's a good question. I couldn't say, I think it's Jessica, I think.
Yeah, Jessica.
Okay. So yeah, good question. There is a gap right now. We can come up with something, or you can come up with something. I made it to come up with something like that. Like there is no template for the comments. Thank you.
I like that idea though, like maybe 3 or 4 different templates that people can choose from that would apply to them. Some fill in the blanks. Yeah, cool. So next steps, I think, Shankar, it would be for you to reformat and bring back that document so we can see the scope and the purpose and whether it meets the 6 criteria. And that will almost be like a test run of that process, right? I think that's the first time that that's getting going. Cool, that's awesome.
The Keith has been working on something like that for, I think it was nature stewardship.
Cool.
Yeah, Keith gave a couple of inputs. I was very happy. He was like, we had some discussion and he was narrowing down. Yeah, then I had to make sure like this is just outreach, like nobody, because we all know that we have a limited time and limited team time to come together. So the scope is clearly outreach. Like you have to in a quick little time, you got to make somebody understand what is this in your industry. Go and please put a response. More folks from even Canada and Mexico come. It's also because this is North American. It comprises both the Canada, US, and Mexico.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just log out and log in back because my screen froze.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
see you soon.
Yeah.
Sailash, you mentioned that that Keith is working on a 6 criteria for nature stewardship for the group as a whole, or has he got a specific initiative? I'm in that group, and I can't think of what it would be.
No, he was doing the vision, mission, aims, culture approach, but one of the questions happened to be, compatibility with the 7 core shifts. So, which is part of the 6 criteria, right? So it looks like that's really what you're getting at, with this vision, mission, aims, and culture. It's to show people that this is a relevant project and this needs to be resourced, and it needs to be given a timeline to go and work. Right? People can go off and work on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've started on the calendar. We're excited to get that posted on the website. We integrated Basecamp. It doesn't seem to update. We haven't figured out how quickly it updates.
Oh, I should refresh it.
Exactly.
I added your interview on Jane Unchained tomorrow, and I think we gave it about 15 minutes, and it still hadn't updated onto Google.
We hadn't checked after that, so we'll double check and see how quickly that works. I think it's got to be at least once an hour that calendar updates.
So the other thing we learned is if there aren't any details in the Basecamp calendar, then nothing shows up on Google either. So the comments in Basecamp don't show up, only the body of the schedule. So we'll need to do some Basecamp training on how to make calendar events so that they actually make sense on the Google Calendar too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we are into our 4th agenda item in terms of time-wise. And these ones I put on the agenda based on Elia's recommendations, and she isn't here, but I still think they are, I'll read them, and I think maybe we can decide as a group what we want to talk about. So the first one was talking about an index that would show all of the groups in Vegan World 2026 and links to their summaries, like maybe they would even be able to update their own, here's what we're working on this month. And she clarified that to be kind of in the general onboarding of new people. Mm-hmm. And then the second suggestion was the newsletter that would update Vegan World 2026 on what's going on within Vegan World 2026, but then also something we could send externally too. And both of those things are agenda items that have been brought up in VCI before, so I thought they'd be great to add here. I would like to hear what Elia has to say about those. So I would like to open it up for discussion on whether we talk about one of those or if anyone else has another agenda discussion item.
I think a newsletter is probably a good idea. Some sort of synopsis. I don't know, was it a monthly newsletter she suggested or a weekly newsletter?
I don't think she said. We've talked internally about, I think what I remember is more of a monthly newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an update from all of the study groups and task forces. Plus any, general climate healers news too. And Ray has done an awesome newsletter in the past. So I don't.
And I think that using this calendar will help with that too, because we'll be able to, summarize what's going on in the next month.
In that respect. Yeah.
Right. We also talked about having like an onboarding group where you get a summary of all the groups that are there and Basecamp etiquette and things like that, that people can read up and maybe have some minimal training done before they join the other groups. Mm-hmm. Because, we need to be very mindful of the main group. When people send emails out to everybody, because there's a lot of power there, right? You can send email out to everybody, but you're spamming people. They may not want to know, I don't know, who slandered who or whatever it is that's going on in some of those messages. So I know that even when we were working in during the internet days, if you send an email out to the whole group and it wasn't relevant, my God, you got dressed down by somebody. Okay, people would call you up and say, "What the heck did you send out there?" Right. So we need someone to do that, and cut off their privileges. So maybe there's some way that people have to onboard onto Basecamp so that they understand the rules before they come on. I'm also thinking that the Slack and Kipwise, where we are actually editing documents, we would only ask people who are certified climate healers to join that.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this way, that's the sort of, you have to go through some learning of our fundamental stories and our new game and so on, so that you're not coming in cold, right? And you won't know what to edit at that point if you're coming in cold. So this way, because it costs us $2 per person per month for that service. And so as our group grows, that'll become more and more expensive. So maybe it's good if I can get certified climate healers to pitch in $2 per person per month, so that it becomes automatic, so it doesn't, then it becomes scalable.
Yeah, definitely.
The onboarding initiative is already in the works, right? Jessica Lenine is working on it, I believe.
Yeah, she's working on the document for Basecamp etiquette, but we need to help her out. There's certain things, it has to be a group effort to figure out.
We actually just met and we're meeting again Thursday to talk about, we've created the guidelines and the etiquette, and we are incorporating the nonviolent communication and the hand signals. So that's where we are right now. So within a week or so, we should be like, at least the guidelines, at least get that document finished and up.
That's
perfect.
That's really cool. And Dr. Rao, something you said, initially I was thinking that we would have to let everyone into the main HQ and their groups and then try to train them on Basecamp. But you mentioned like maybe we let them do an onboarding group.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll let Ray figure this out. But
okay.
The intent is that someone who joins Basecamp right away should not be able to send emails out to everyone right away. You need to have some, because otherwise people are telling me that they're getting too many emails, that they don't want to be on Basecamp anymore. people are walking out of base camp because of that, you know, so it is important for us to maintain that etiquette.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the opposite of what Basecamp is designed to do, which is to have that HQ group where everybody's involved, and you post in the chat, and it goes to everybody, which would be fine if it was just in Basecamp. But now it's going to everybody gets an email notification, and a lot of people are finding their inboxes are overflowing, because every comment is something that gets shared with everybody. So we have to decide whether that's a functional feature of Basecamp or not. Is it an elective? Is it something that, because I've automatically added every single person to the HQ. And a lot of people have removed themselves, not just from that group, but from Basecamp entirely.
Right. Maybe in HQ, you can look at the default settings so that when people send a message, it doesn't go out to everyone by default.
They would have to add.
They would have to add. So it goes out to whoever they tagged or something, you know, that doesn't go out to everyone by default.
I think it works the other way around. I think each individual is in control of their settings. And that if they're included in a project, which...
It's not a global setting.
Yeah. My question would be, Dr. Rao, didn't you have the Interfaith Vegan Coalition as a separate group? Or do all of those members exist at the headquarters level as well? Like, can we funnel people in without adding them to HQ is my question.
Yeah,
we can. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we can.
It's just been protocol to this point that I have added everybody, because that's the nature of what the HQ is. It's the lobby of Basecamp. But it does create aggravation to people. We could remove it, but then we are robbed of that ability to address everybody all at once. How do we do that otherwise?
No, that's why I think we should, maybe we should onboard them into a separate group where they learn the etiquette and say that they've read it at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if they agree to the inflow of emails, or they accept responsibility for the fact that anything they send out within the Vegan World 2026 group goes to everybody, then we can add them to that group.
Right. Yeah.
And we can even include in the training to set your own settings so that you aren't emailing everyone.
Well, we would definitely include that, because
be more mindful of
that's
that.
a good feature to be aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be made clear to people that, you know, it's a privilege to be able to send an email to everybody. So, and that should not be abused.
So
Is there anything that you, Jackie, you and Jessica need to move forward with that? Is there anything we could?
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like a little subgroup. So we would need a new actual group in Basecamp. I'm guessing your guidelines would go in the main headquarters as well, but they would go in this new onboarding group. And then we would need, you know, other people to populate that group as well to answer questions or.
Right.
And so what else?
I just had a peek. We just added 54 new members in March. There was a big surge. Maybe people finding indoor ways of doing activism. So maybe we should be actively promoting Basecamp right now, because people are starting to look for ways to do meaningful things from their keyboard.
Right.
So what do we do with this idea of, we have an etiquette group and it's also pretty much a no-brainer. That's where we engage people and teach them how Basecamp works. We have a link that's got a bunch of different resources to that degree, but people always have questions that won't be there. So that's an opportunity to engage with newcomers. And I guess this might be something that's a weekly onboarding of new members, have some sort of a meeting.
I think that could be helpful, like an open house kind of thing for new members. Is that what you're talking about? Maybe like pass that around, or are you volunteering for that?
Well, this is one thing that I see with is obviously part of my job description, but we're going to have to decide how much effort we want to put into that. It looks like a lot of people are signing on, so it's something that would be beneficial to make it standardized. But there's, you know, sometimes people from different time zones or different continents that are signing on. So as making a regular time every week may be a bit tricky, but maybe it's a noon and midnight kind of thing where we, like Celeste has done with his presentations. Well, they're noon and midnight for me.
Right. Now you can do 8 a.m., 8 p.m. for you.
They're not 9 and 9 or 10 and
9
10?
and 9 or something like that. Because any 12-hour span would cover the entire globe. Someone will find it convenient, no matter where they are.
So thus far, the etiquette part is being handled by Jackie and Jessica, Lenine,
Yeah.
and that's so far that's all the only people that are involved in this group. And I am adding myself.
Yeah, add yourself. And then I think once we sign up with Kipwise, the document should be on Kipwise, the wiki. Then we can edit it as we go along. So it becomes a living document.
Is that the platform that Wikipedia is using?
Wikipedia has their own platform, but Kipwise has this the ability to snapshot something and show it in a separate web page. Maybe Wikipedia's platform also has it, but we haven't evaluated that, and we don't know if it's supported for outside people. I know Kipwise is supported.
Cool.
It doesn't look like there's anything that works within Basecamp that accomplishes the same thing.
Basecamp, yeah, they replied back to me saying, no, we can't do that. Yeah.
Now, as for the newsletter, that obviously connects with the schedule of upcoming events, and that's what people want to know about. Do we form a committee for that initiative, or am I joining a scheduling group and providing a newsletter appendage to that?
Well, the collective intelligence did initially form both a calendar group and a newsletter group, and then we got a little distracted with the vision, mission, aims, and culture work. So yeah, I don't know if the answer is to just restart those groups. It does seem like this work is needed, or to me, at least, it seems like it's needed. But yeah.
So we have a list of those names somewhere, and nobody's officially quit from them.
Nope.
So I'll reach out to those people and say, how do we feel about making a newsletter? It's a bit of work. It's, and it's checking in on all the different groups to see what they have to report, which is sort of collective intelligence domain. But sometimes there's not a lot to report until things get going.
Yeah.
I know some of the groups are trying to decide what their mission is, and there's not much to report.
There is Dr. Will Tuttle sends out a newsletter that kind of has what he's doing, and then also has like
In the news.
in the news, interesting things that are related. Like I know that Ray, you go around posting things in each of these groups that are really relevant and very interesting. And I think those types of things could even be included in the newsletter for now, if we don't have a lot of activity. Like if you're interested in this group, here are some articles that you might be interested in reading over the past month.
And Dr. Rao, your conversation with Alan Savory made it into Will Tuttle's newsletter this month.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, so Ray, it was me and Nancy on the newsletter team. So let's connect on that. And Benjamin was calendar guy.
Yep.
So, yeah.
You're our calendar child.
How are we doing? So we're still technically in, either onboarding discussion and newsletter discussion time, if there's more for that discussion. Otherwise, break time is next. We've taken to scheduling in breaks in these meetings. Would people like to take a break or keep working through the agenda?
Yeah, I have to refill my water.
And Benjamin says I'm signing off per earlier.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
It was nice.
Oh, thank you. This is great.
Talk to you.
Talk to you soon, Jessica.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Recording resumed. Hope everyone had a nice little break. And I left the end of the agenda kind of open on purpose because I wanted to see how the discussions went in the beginning, and whether we wanted to pick any of those up again after the break. And so I want to hear what other people want to talk about, and I want to propose maybe a goal for the newsletter, like as one of the things we talk about is when we want to send out the next newsletter and setting that goal. And then after that, I'm open to what other people want to talk about, and I can read what I put in as possibilities in the agenda, or you can just feel free to propose a topic. And we can also end early because I feel like we have covered a lot between the onboarding group and the work that you're doing, Jackie, and the newsletter that we've identified. Shankar, I don't know if he'll make it back, but I know he has work to do as well. So. Maybe we start with, I know that Joshua and Margot are working on some marketing for the summit that's coming up. Benjamin reminded me of that because during our break, I said, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could get the first newsletter out, or the next newsletter out by Monday at the latest to promote the summit too. So I don't know if does that sound too soon? Does that sound good? Ray, what do you think? Dr. Rao? You probably know more about what Margot and Joshua are up to.
Yeah, they're planning to have the website ready by today. So it's coronahealers.org.
Cool.
And then so the summit will be announced on that. Then that will start the marketing process. So then I can speak about it tomorrow on Jane Willis Mitchell's show. And we are still waiting for Jane Goodall's reply. So her team has said that they're going to talk to her. So I'm hoping for a positive response. But if we don't get her, I think Earthling Ed has agreed to join.
Cool.
So we have 18 interviews scheduled. It's pretty extensive, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. The first summit changed our lives. You know, I ended up going to the conference and meeting. I didn't end up meeting you, Ray, but met everybody else here, and this has really inspired us to get involved in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Ray, what do you think about getting a newsletter out by Monday, the start of the summit? How does, timing-wise, does that sound like too much, or?
I could compile a newsletter. Just depends on the content. The ones that I've done in the past, have I done 2? They're just kind of ad hoc. There's a bunch of things happening, and part of it was to send an email outside of the Basecamp structure. Assuming that there was a lot of Basecamp members who have turned off their notifications and are, as soon as you turn off your notifications, you don't have any window into what's going on in Basecamp at all. It's almost like leaving entirely. And there's at least 100 or more people who have names in Basecamp, have accounts that are active but aren't actually participating in any way. And it's hard to tell whether they're getting the mail and they've tuned it out, or whether they've mechanically filtered out the emails. So sending an email from my Ray at Climate Healers was one of the motivations for doing that.
There is a
and talking about.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Now I was going to say there is a MailChimp account for Climate Healers, and we have around 2,000 email addresses there. And Deborah has access to that. So MailChimp allows you to compile a newsletter as well. Has templates, and so you can just drop things in. Makes it easier.
It all depends on what the scope of this newsletter is and how many people are contributing to it. It's something that I'm willing to do. It's just a question of whether that is the best use of my time. Right. They've taken about a day each, the other 2 that I've done. Started in the morning and just kind of started compiling. And both times I didn't realize it was going to take that long. But kind of going through all the different groups and seeing who had meetings coming up, what there might be to report. And it's kind of like a little bit of a newspaper where if there's people that are finding upcoming events that need to be posted, then it's their initiative to get it in before the submission deadline. So I could try to hunt down the scoops, or we set up a system by which the leaders of each of the groups are required to report, even if they don't have anything to report, to at least touch base and say what if they've got anything to announce, or whether they want to announce what they're doing in a format that, because they want more people to join their group. Some groups are pretty small, and some groups have become a lot more relevant because of recent events. New economy was what really struck me, that we're watching our economy change right in front of our eyes. Yet there's not very many people in that group. There's a few enthusiasts. I would consider myself an enthusiast. I didn't care about the economy at all 4 years ago. So this is kind of like a new topic to me. I never took economy in high school or university. So That reminds me of another thing that Shankar and I have decided that we're going to recruit people to groups and try to find people that are relevant to the different topics at hand, especially vegans, but not necessarily limited to vegans. And when that happens, is it a matter of inviting them to Basecamp or inviting them to a discussion or inviting them to engage with radish.org in one of their events, which I think is a good staging opportunity to introduce them to Radish, which is a sharing of ideas, not necessarily in a vegan format, because there's a lot of people with good things to say that are relevant to a lot of the topics that we cover, but aren't necessarily vegan themselves. Or may even be part of the resistance to expressing vegan solutions for environmentalism and climate change. We survived Alan Savory, could pretty much survive anybody, right? That was a good test.
Yeah.
Well, so the more that you were talking, Ray, the more I was thinking maybe Monday is it's too soon for a newsletter,
Right.
and that, you know, Margot and Joshua have the summit marketing covered. Maybe we can aim for in the middle of the summit and, you know, promote it a little more then, and that gives us time to pull things together for Basecamp.
It's also something that we could potentially talk about during our interview if we want to include any of the logistics of how Basecamp is operating.
Are you
Right.
using Pinky Promise for?
No, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which does have a Basecamp goal. So yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Okay, so the newsletter is still kind of in idea phase. Is that where we are here? We aren't executing that right now.
There's also two newsletters that were mentioned, the one that's internal to Basecamp and the one that's external. So the topics really, there's overlapping topics, but the way that you approach each of them would probably be fairly different to the casual Climate Healers newsletter of 2,000 people, as opposed to the people that were trying to get engaged and active and motivated. I think the language is probably a lot different.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Inclusive, I guess, with within Basecamp. I'm not sure if the previous one, I sent it to the newsletter to Deborah with modifications, because a lot of it was like, this is happening tomorrow, this is happening, you know, the day after tomorrow, and then a day, we lost a day, and then it was, I had to change all the day after tomorrow's to tomorrow, and get rid of everything that was that had already happened that day, for the sake of the newsletter that was going to be shared with everybody. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky to decide how to organize these things, because you can be a little bit more informal when you're saying that there's events coming up this week and just letting people know what they are, what the meetings are.
May I make a suggestion? Talk to Joshua about it, Joshua and Margot, because they have a background in marketing, and they can tell you how to sort of position these things. You know?
It's also a question of whether you want consistency. If you have
Right.
a great fleshed out newsletter with a lot of graphics and layout, then that might be something people would expect, and then it becomes perhaps daunting, and depending on how much time people have to put it together, and then it might be either much thinner the next time. Is consistency important? I'm not sure if it is, but getting the information out is usually the most important.
Do we have a meeting with Margot on the calendar?
Not
Not yet.
confirmed. No.
But there was one that was stemmed from
From Pinky
yesterday's
Promise.
conversation.
Yeah.
So we can talk to Margot next time if you don't want to schedule a time to talk with them, Ray, we will end up talking to them at some point soon.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like maybe a group discussion
Yeah.
would be good though too.
Right.
Yeah.
Also,
Margo and I have been trying to connect, and it just hasn't worked out. But that is in the cards. We're planning that.
also, if any certified climate healers want a climate healers email account, I'd be happy to create them and
Oh,
give
awesome.
them to you.
Is that what service is that using? Is that using?
It's under G Suite. It's under Google.
Cool.
Margot and Joshua asked for it, and so I gave it to them. So they haven't yet certified, so to speak, but they understand the story.
Yeah, they're going to be great additions to this team. Just talking with Margot for a brief period of time was, she is a doer.
Inspiring.
She's very inspiring.
Right.
One thing that came up was when Sailesh was interviewed by Jane, I did a transcript of it. First, I just kind of took the rough transcript, the auto transcript out of YouTube, and made a document out of it, and then watched it and just kind of identified the speakers, because the transcript doesn't recognize different speakers and beginnings and endings of sentences and so forth. So I was just kind of doing it on the fly as a rough transcript. And then I decided to do a good copy of it and insert it into the video itself as renewed captions. And now it's something that we can share as a transcript. If people don't want to watch the video, we have a proofed transcript to share with people. And as I was doing this, I was thinking, this is how I create more work for myself. And then Sailesh said,
Ray.
hey, can you do that to all my 10 videos? 10 hours of transcripts? Which I have been thinking about. I was thinking about that a long time ago, that these need transcripts. And they're in YouTube, so you can pull them. And I've been developing this method of crowdsourcing the transcripts. And one good thing that happened recently that, because of people's shifting priorities, one of my friends has said she's got more time on her hands, and she does transcriptions for courthouses. So she's a gunslinger for transcripts.
She's got the tools.
And she said she's available later in the week, so I'm going to form a little team to develop this idea of getting transcripts for all the most important things that we come across, or just this loose system of pulling the transcripts whenever we have videos and having them available for people to do a comment search to try to find particular topics, because sometimes something goes on for an hour and you go, I was in that meeting and I remember somebody said something about this. So you can pull up the transcript and search it, and you can add timestamps and so forth. So this is clearly something that's part of the collective intelligence. The more clear we are in what's been said, the more clear the intelligence is to be assimilated.
Yeah, and to learn from.
And to be fed to the robots later on. The
I was
artificial intelligence.
You're developing a radish functionality right now.
Yeah, in fact, there's a young man by the name of Vaya who's joining us. And so he wants to take our videos and take 30-second or 1-minute snippets out of it. That's critical, and then share it on Instagram and, get more people to join. Yeah.
Cool.
So,
from your presentations?
From the material that's on the website. There's a lot of material on the website, right? But it's all in 1-hour chunks, which very few people have the patience to go through. They see it's 1 hour and they just walk away. So he's trying to create 1-minute clips out of it so that people say, hey, there is more to it. And then they come and look at the big picture.
Cool. Who did you say that was? Who's joining?
His name is Vaya, W-A-Y-A.
Mentioning my friend who has a specific skill set, one resource we have that we should tap into at some point is our sign-up survey. We ask people what sort of resources they have, what sort of skills they want to donate to the cause, and we've never looked at it. So, I mean, I look at it every once in a while, but mostly just as I'm inserting people's names into Basecamp and trying to figure out what city, what time zone I should put them in. There's a lot of information there, and there may be a lot of people who have skills to give.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been building that inventory, but haven't been doing anything with it so far. Well,
We mentioned sociocracy briefly earlier on as I guess it's still something that we recommend practice in VCI and recommend to other groups. Is that still the case, or is there any further insight into how our governance model might be proposed to different groups?
Yeah, that's a good question. So far, what we kind of discovered is that the process we attempted to implement took a little bit too much time and work. And we didn't have as much participation as we thought. And maybe that was part of the issue, is wanting more participation. And then we attempted to just try and hash out a vision, mission, and aims, and proposed it as something that's good enough for now, safe enough to try. And I think we got stuck, right? And that was kind of right during the onset of this virus, and there was a lot of fluctuation between in meeting attendance, and we weren't quite sure how to just decide and be like, okay, this is good enough for now, safe enough to try. What are you gonna say? So I don't quite know. I think that we're kind of doing it naturally. And it kind of seems like what would happen naturally, especially when you start thinking about the 7 core shifts and how that plays into how we interact with each other. There's like a lot of equanimity, there's a lot of equality, and everybody has a voice. And then at the same time, we had a meeting with Margot where she said something like, we've got to have decision makers, because otherwise we're just going to stall out like this when we try to get too many voices in one place. And so again, being somebody who really likes to look at things from all perspectives before making the decision, don't quite know whether I personally think it's safe enough to move forward with sociocracy and attempt to use bits and pieces of it when we need to make decisions. And until the group actually gets too large to make a decision, then we run into that wall when we get there. But
I kind of get the impression that sociocracy kind of is that. You take the bits and pieces that work for you.
Yeah.
And there was
oh, go ahead.
I watched a few videos on it, and there's obviously common structures, but there's also holacracy, which had a little bit more of a corporate approach, but it had a feature that I really liked, which was that everybody can operate independently. There is a governance model, because it's good to have a governance model in any sort of group that has objectives in mind, but to motivate freedom of creativity, to have a rule that you can just operate independently. Somebody that was comparing this feature to sociocracy said it's kind of like just do it, and as long as you're not interfering with anybody else, and you can always beg for forgiveness later. So you're trying things out, and some people are going to come into a big theme like new economy and have a very specific set of study that they want to pursue. while the group is deciding what are the main questions they want to pursue. I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes out of that because people propose questions, and if it becomes an aim and not a mission, did I just get sorted down in priority? Are we going to talk about things that I don't want to talk about, or the thing that I like is going to get swept under the carpet? There's anxiety. I don't think there necessarily needs to be, but that is a feature that gives people the freedom to express what they wanted to talk about, what they might have a lot of expertise and wealth of information to share. And the other thing is, like me in the new economy group, I know nothing about the economy, so I'm there to learn. How much value do I have in answering questions about the economy before I've even begun to learn, off the top of my head? The most important questions that can be answered easily are the ones that are obviously the wrong questions. The ones that kind of have a silver bullet approach, and you go, okay, well, that's obviously the wrong question. So you can kind of check that one off as it either too easy to answer, too rhetorical, or, hinting at the wrong approach. No is easier than the yes, and then 10-page thesis paper on on what the answer is.
Right. Is there a 20-minute version of sociocracy and a 20-minute version of holacracy that we can look at?
Videos?
Yeah.
There's also Sociocracy 3.0 presentation, which had a very different approach. It was very much about the engagement, priming the participants emotionally for the process, I would say.
I think we watched that one. It didn't seem to dive into the process at all, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
There's something that shows the process, because if holacracy, seems like holacracy is probably what we want to use now, or something like holacracy, and then design sociocracy for the vegan world.
The one thing I was concerned about holacracy was that it's designed for a corporation, for the CEO to sign a contract to say, I give up all power, everybody's now equal. And what I'm concerned about is we're building off of a basis of climate healers and beyond, rather than redesigning things that climate healers has already understood.
Right.
So we're looking for a vegan world. We don't need to have a democratic process where we just say, well, is it vegan? No. It is. I mean, we're not going back that far. We're not completely making undoing everything that's already been done. We want to build upon a foundation, and there's a certain amount of rules that or questions that have already been answered that we don't need to propose again, but they will inevitably get proposed again and hashed out and cause a lot of distraction and slow the process.
Yeah, that was part of the problem. I think as newcomers were coming in, we were trying to explain in the middle of this process where we were at and how to participate while trying to be as inclusive as possible. I think it just kind of all bogged itself down.
Can you imagine being CEO of a corporation and signing a contract that I have no authority more than anybody else in the company?
Suppose we get people to get certified as climate healers, so that they watch the videos and then they're okay with the foundation of it, right? And then you can participate in the sociocracy process. Or, you have this, others can review and comment, but they cannot really make decisions, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I like that. I think that's the kind of these, the training and onboarding is really what's going to be needed in making sure we're all on the same page when we're starting to attend these meetings.
Right. Otherwise, people are going to be disrupting things. They can come in and disrupt anytime, right? Because we don't have any filtering for people to join.
Do we have a foundation, as I've described, that we say this is when they watch those videos, are we saying that this is canon? None of this is up for negotiation, because we don't really have that kind of language thus far. We're just saying this is sociocracy. Everybody's equal. All ideas are good, and what's most important is that you get heard. Unless you have something, I mean, the definition of veganism is probably a good place to start, because when you say a vegan world, there is the ability for people to have their own definition of what that means.
If
Well,
I
go
can
ahead.
interrupt, part of the guidelines that we started out with was the first question is, what is Basecamp? I mean, we describe exactly what Basecamp is and why you're here. And then we go into basically what is our purpose? Why are we here? And at least I wrote it the way is, we're not vegans to be vegan. We're here, and we're gathered here because we are creating a transformation in humanity. We're here for the 7 core shifts. Veganism is part of that. And we describe really the mission and vision of Silesh and Basecamp and Vegan World 2026. So when anyone comes in, that is the doorway, the threshold that they have to cross, is that they have to understand through that veil is like, this is the world that you're entering. This is about human transformation. And you're going to learn about why veganism is so integral to that process. So that they really understand that this is much larger than just like, that narrow vision of this is our mission, if that helps me.
Totally. Yeah, that's great. If we could use your language there as part of the orientation.
That is the orientation.
Yeah. Sorry, I guess. What I mean is, as we are training people, we make sure that that's very clear.
Yeah, I think that's the document that would be in the onboarding group, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's part of the guidelines. That's why I'm wondering what part of this conversation should we then incorporate into the guidelines, because we were really trying to solidify some kind of a format as for behavior and etiquette and then we realized that we have to have separate etiquette for when we're doing live or webinars versus, just commenting and being active on Basecamp. So then we developed 2 separate ones. So that's why I really want to kind of, I'm absorbing what is it when someone joins just Basecamp, and then what if they push back and they see, oh, so I can join, but is there a hierarchy here? How do we address that? I want all those questions to be addressed, because then we develop the shared agreements also. Like, we're entering the next level if you want to engage, but we all have to agree that this is a sacred space. We all have to agree that we're here to honor everyone's experiences. And so part of those shared agreements are to be able to let everyone know where they're entering in. But then after that, when we go to guidelines, they're going to ask, well, how long, do you have to be a member so long before you can even be eligible to become certified? Like, what are those questions? And then does that give us a hierarchy as to the contributions that we can make? Like, that's a lot of policy, and I'm not good at policy, so I'm just listening.
Right. No, I think, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so long as people have the 7 core shifts that they all agree to, I'm happy to give up my power. I don't need any power, give up my CEO thingy, if that's what it means, right? Right. But it has to.
Are there any situations where things that we pursue don't fit all 7, where they maybe don't all apply? Or is there room for debate about whether they are complying or not?
I think that's why the compatibility with the 7 core shifts should be part of any project that's approved. People have to show that it is, right?
One of the questions that came up in the VCI was that definition of what is our objective for vegan for what is the vegan world? What is it we expecting by 2026?
Right.
And that's something that you've expressed, but if it becomes a question for everybody to give their opinion and debate, then it overrules the original definition that you created. How do we deal with things like that?
So, I mean, it started from Kimaya's definition. Kimaya's definition is that her family is not being eaten by anybody. Okay, that's her definition. Animals are her family, and I don't want people eating my family. That's her definition of a vegan world. Now, I'm an engineer, and I say, well, I cannot guarantee you 100%, okay? There's no such thing as 100%. There's going to be some dude somewhere doing it, okay? So I want something that's measurable. And I started with the 9 countries that were there on my slide at that time. I think I was showing a slide about 2016 Google search, vegan exceeded Coca-Cola, right? And there were 9 countries. The 9 top countries were, I think, Australia, USA, New Zealand. I mean, all the Western countries were there. So, okay, those I can measure, right? You say for those that you measure, there should be at least 51% of the people saying that they're vegan. So that was my engineering minimum requirement. Okay, that's my minimum requirement. I'm not saying that's what we are aiming for. We are aiming for Kimaya's goal, which is her family is not being eaten by anybody.
You've also named a date, so that's a
2026.
reasonable objective to achieve in 6 years, because it takes a long time to reach absolutely everybody in the world. There's some parts of certain continents that are hard to reach at all. So when you describe your definition of what a vegan world is and what our objective is, it made a lot of sense to me, because I've also, as an activist, had to deal with a lot of people objecting to the vegan movement without even saying vegan world. But as soon as you say vegan world, they go, oh, but and then they're going to have all sorts of objections. Some people can't afford it. Some people are too isolated. So, there's this definition addresses all of those in one breath. So they can stop pointing at other places, the people that can't go vegan, and you start talking about them, right? Why can't they? They're online, they're engaged in a privileged community. Remove all the distractions and just concentrate on people that live in urban centers that are 50% creates a lot of space for people to include themselves and not worry about that sector of the cities that maybe would be the most difficult. And it's not to say that there aren't movements in the less advantaged communities either. The Black vegan communities are promoting veganism at a faster rate than most privileged communities.
Right.
There's very specific movements that are happening, and we have to identify them and empower them to do their work. And that's, we've got a project that's dedicated to that, but nothing's actually happened in that group yet.
Yeah, I mean, all that will happen. I mean, I really think that as part of this, what is happening with the virus, we have a chance to go to every local government and say, you need to give healthy vegan food for free to your people, so that they have less diabetes, they have less heart disease, they have less inflammation, and they become less prone to going to ER. Your ER is going to be flooded, especially with the way President Trump is dealing with this issue. Okay? You're going to have your convention centers full of beds. Is that what you want? See, we have lived in a system in which we think it's normal to get people sick and then to fix them. And there's a lot of employment going on, right? And so we keep doing that over and over. And at some point you have to say, stop, this is not working anymore. Okay, here is a better way. Give them free food. If they don't eat it, that's their problem, okay? But give them free food. So that question of this is more expensive, especially when people don't have jobs. They're sitting around, they don't have any income. and our federal government is sending them one check, how long is that going to last? That's not a solution. The solution is for us to come up with our own systems, local systems in which we grow our food and we give it away for free. Okay? And we come together as a community. And who can grow what in your backyard? So let's put it together. Let's create free vegan food and give it to people. If they want to eat it, they can eat it. If they don't want to eat it, that's fine. They can order from Domino's or wherever they want to order from. That's their problem. Okay. What we need to guarantee is that there's to be systems put in place that the food that's going out to these people is nutritious. It will reverse diabetes. It will reverse heart disease and inflammation and all this. And it's guaranteed by doctors that it will do that, right? And that it is wiped clean of viruses, so that by the time they pick up the box at their front door, they can be sure that it is not going to contaminate them. So you have to make processes and put processes in place to make that happen. So that's what we're going to be talking, during this summit. How do we do that? And so I have a Vice Mayor of Tempe, Lauren, is going to be joining us. So.
Do you know any other cities or communities that are doing this already, or some form of this? Maybe not vegan, but some form of community movement that we may not have to, reinvent the wheel, that we may be able to modify and adapt for our needs?
Well, in Western countries, I don't know, but in China, the government cooked food and sent it to Wuhan, okay, every day. If you don't do that, there is no lockdown. There's no lockdown. People are going to the grocery store and they're picking up the viruses. Okay, that's what's happening here. That's what's happening in Italy. So you'll never be able to bend the curve properly. So you'll always be in this lockdown until the entire population is infected. Okay, that's where we're headed. Unless we put processes in place to make this happen, then you can start managing this, because ultimately we're all going to get infected. Okay, so I begin with the assumption that I'm going to get infected. I don't know when. I would rather it be later than now, because by a year from now, hopefully there is a vaccine, or maybe there is some better treatment for it. I don't know. But every time we go and mess with animals, we are opening up this Pandora's box, right? So one virus or the other is going to show up. So we are suffering through this, hopefully the last time we do stupid things like this, right? I mean, we need to sort of stop eventually this whole process of creating new diseases, because there are no bear doctors. There are no doctors among deer. Deer don't have, you are a doctor, you take care of me, I mean, when you eat your natural food and you lead your natural life, you really don't need, you have to be healthy all the time. So we have an entire profession of doctors because we keep unleashing these diseases because we are eating animals.
I think the COVID-19 crisis has brought that future a lot closer to us. So when we were examining the different questions that are either shift solutions or new model solutions, I think that the new model solutions have gotten a little bit closer. But how do we decide where's the threshold between action and planning systems, studying systems and planning for their eventual collapse, which I kind of see as more of less engaging in current politics and stepping aside and doing some private thinking to plan out a system to replace the economy once it really completely collapses.
Yeah, but I think this is why now we have a better idea of how the transition is happening. This is the transition. This is it. There is no other. There is no going back to being a caterpillar. No matter what the president says, he's not going back. Even if he opens up the economy in 3 weeks, who the heck is he trading with? Everybody else is shut down. He's going to be making deals with what? With monopoly money. So it's done. This economy is done, right? So we are just going to be watching the stock market go down to zero slowly. In the meantime, we have to figure out alternate currencies, alternate ways of getting people engaged in doing things that's good for all of us. Yeah, there are a lot of people who are idle now. What, 30% unemployment? How can you let that continue, right? And say, well, you starve. Excuse me, no, that's not a solution. It may be a solution from Trump. It's not my solution. I'm not interested in that. So we have to figure out local systems that we can put in place with alternate currencies and alternate ways of trading, and getting people engaged in doing things that need to be done. There is a shortage of healthcare workers who need to be trained. So there's so many shortages that we see happening. I mean, I'm looking at India and I'm saying, how is India going to deal with this? There is no such thing as social distancing there. It's a luxury that we have. And India is going to see hundreds of millions of infections very soon.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about it in a way that and be careful not to sound like it's a good thing. But I was just thinking about the incredible timing that is happening from a political standpoint in the United States, that just at the same time that socialism is being, vilified in the form of Bernie Sanders, that this current Republican administration is going to have until November to train everybody. They are the training ground for socialism in action. Now they have to implement a form of socialism to keep things going. So they'll either do a good job of it, or they're just going to, create a great thirst for it by the time November comes around.
I suspect, here's what I think is going to happen. I don't know if it's true. I'm just guessing that the elections are going to be suspended because it's an emergency. So you'll have Trump for life, president for life. And that's going to annoy a lot of people. So the ground will be ripe for a massive revolution like this, where we create our own currencies and we just operate independent of these people. And eventually they'll come along, because they will come along ultimately. They're all part of this whole thing. But in this new one, good food is going to be free. Whether they like it or not, it's going to be free. So then the rest of the people are going to say, well, how do we contribute to this? Right? I'll give you French fries, but you have to pay.
That's one of the features that I kind of associate with this base camp, is that we don't fall for the temptation to talk about politics that much, because politics isn't going to solve the problem.
Right.
So it seems a little strange that we're suddenly, that I introduced that topic, but that still kind of follows that we're still looking to people to see how bad politics has gotten, so they're motivated to make changes outside of politics, that it's actually us that has to do the work, not our elected leaders, and that we cast our vote and then we complain for 4 years.
Right.
I have one comment. It's
yes,
okay.
DC.
Yes, actually, what I was thinking was like the economy or even any side, the first footstep towards that simple concept called bundling. What that means is, I can give simple food example, like the buffet is a good example. Maybe if you order only one item, you literally pay like close to $10. But if you can get it easily by buffet 15 or something, you can literally combine more things. And in capitalism, they're allowed and they like that. Because their eye is on $15. What we have to do is, but the point is not I'm saying about $15, that bundling is the mechanism, is the first step how you can come to that free economy. Like when you start bundling things and offering, and even capitalism cannot stand for that. Like, so that's like a first taste of the mixed free economy, I would say, or whatever, exchange against more of a compassionate wealth than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, they're already seeing the problems, right? They're saying that Why is the governor of Illinois competing with the governor of New York for face masks and jacking up the prices in the process? This is a bad model for dealing with people's lives. This is not the way to do it. Okay? It's a good model for accumulating money. It's not a good model for life. So we have this dichotomy now, your money or your life, right? So you have to choose which one you want. And Trump is saying, I want to choose money in 2 weeks. I mean, he's literally saying that. And I think he's going to be under a lot of pressure because there are going to be a lot of senior citizens who are going to be upset with him. And they are his voting bloc, actually. Yeah, Meals on Wheels, that's the kind of model. We need to sort of take Meals on Wheels and make that a delivery for every household in the neighborhood type of thing. So they're going to be cooking a lot of food, right? And then you need to then get people to come and volunteer to help cook, help cut veggies, and there's so much work to be done. And all those people are going to be paid in this alternate currency, right? Yeah.
It was mentioned earlier, other initiatives that are already active that we can try to influence. And if they have some sort of governance that you can talk to privately, perhaps, a lot of them are related to social justice movements that are exactly the ones that I say hold the vegan movement at arm's length. And they would say, how dare you at this time try to push your agenda? Right.
I mean, look,
they won't listen to any amount of it's healthier,
it's not that. We are just saying, why are we continuing to feed people food that's going to flood your hospitals? Are we stupid? Right? I mean, it's a very simple question. Do you not see that your hospitals are being flooded?
Very simple answer, too.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, we already know this is a ground that we've covered with fast food that we know isn't healthy for us, and yet we still allow it to be advertised on TV. We finally stopped advertising cigarettes on TV, and now it's time to really accelerate this whole process where it takes decades to pass laws. We need them now, right? We need to start passing those laws now.
Even those ads don't matter anymore because fast food companies don't have money to advertise anymore. They're closing down. Okay, so they're all hurting. All these businesses are hurting. This virus, this little unknown virus, has done so much at upsetting the current system. So I really think nature is much smarter than we give her credit for. I mean, she's the mastermind here. We are just puppets. Yeah. There's
also this clear reveal of the stock market being this man-made illusion. It's if the curtain has ever been pulled on anything and just to reveal the entire illusion of something that's absolutely not in any shape or form a real thing, it's the stock market which they could just decide to close down so it doesn't crash. It's what is it? now things that I haven't asked myself my entire life. Now I'm going, what is the stock market? Why is it just something that people are so worried about, yet is as flexible as a rubber ball, a beach ball?
Yeah, I would call it as a stock market is simply a artificial water fountain.
Yeah. No, I think we should stop paying attention to the stock market and just focus on the real economy, which is economy is really about how do we allocate our time and our effort. There is an economy going on here on Basecamp. The people are allocating their time and effort to it. So there is a currency that's being spent here. That's called time, right? So an economy is about how do you allocate your time and effort, and what do you get for it from the community for doing that. And that I think that the current all the economic studies are all based on this fictitious scientific model that's based on supply and demand, in which you're trying to create an artificial scarcity. Otherwise, there is no value to whatever you have. If you have plenty of water, pure water, no one's going to buy water from you, right? So you have to make the pure water scarce so you can put pure water in a bottle and sell it to people. So this is why they're polluting like crazy everywhere. It's a function of the business model, of the economic model. So why do I want such economists to show up here and help us with economics? No, I don't. We don't want that, We are imagining something completely different, which is how do we allocate our time? How do we measure accurately? Because only when you measure accurately can you manage properly. If your measurement is based on some artificial supply and demand, what are we managing? We are managing the destruction of the planet. Right? So this is why I say the Aquarius, the cost has to be the actual CO2 footprint, the actual energy footprint, the actual water footprint, the actual land use footprint. So it could be a multidimensional cost vector, not a single cost. Okay, you don't have to just put everything down into one number. It's a multidimensional cost vector for the product, which is actually measuring our ecological footprint. Right? And then you allocate these to people, and then people trade. They can say, I have extra water footprint, I can give it away to this guy and get some energy footprint, so I can buy this product because its vector cost is a little bit higher. So then you know that the economy is making sure that we are within our limits. That's the whole idea.
And it also motivates our compassion, that the activities that we do ought to be better as well, and we get rewarded for that.
Right.
You mentioned the Aquarius. Is there going to be an announcement soon about what's been?
Well, tomorrow I have a meeting with the people who are working on the software, Arvind and Nandini, and because they were working on something different, a little bit different, but now they want to incorporate Aquarius into it, and it is. Because of the virus, it has completely changed our outlook. You can't market it the way they were marketing it. No one is going to even listen to them anymore. The virus has taken over the oxygen of humanity. There's only one thing people are looking at now. This is it. And looking at the simulations from Imperial College, and no matter what we do, this is going to be in our consciousness for a while, for a few years, until a lot of us get infected. Okay, so if we sort of push off the infection by being very careful, you're just going to get it next year or the year after or something, until your body gets adjusted to this virus. It's like cholera or typhoid or one of those things, right? Ultimately, we all had to be either get infected, or get vaccinated for it, or the disease gets eradicated eventually, which requires testing everybody, right? Testing everybody and then isolating the ones who have it, and then waiting until they all, have gotten rid of the virus. But even then, they'll have pieces of the virus in them, and they're going to breathe it out, and it's going to mutate, and it's going to eventually show up. This is why flu never goes away, right? Flu keeps coming back.
For those other outbreaks, why didn't it break the economy the way that it's breaking it now?
Oh, it has to have the right combination of infectiousness and lethality. So if it is like SARS, the first SARS was more lethal than this one. So I think 10% of the people died, but it only infected someone else at the end stages of the disease. Okay, so by the time you get to the end stages, you isolated the person. You knew he had it, right? So no one went near them. They were wearing all these, ET suit before they went and talked to them, right, as doctors. So people died.
Or as they say with the common cold, that if you're showing symptoms, you're already past the contagious stage for the most part.
Right,
It happens
exactly.
early.
That's what this is. This one is infectious when you don't even show the symptoms. You don't even know you have it, but you're passing it around to people. Okay? So how do you isolate people? You have to do what China did. It just, lock down everybody, find out everyone who has it in an advanced stage, go trace everyone they talk to, which the Chinese government can do because they have you on videotape, okay, for your entire life. They know exactly where you've been. So they trace you back, and then they test everybody down the line to see who has it. And then work your way back. So then you say, if someone else has it, then go trace everyone he talked to or she talked to. So by doing that, they isolated it. I mean, they think they got it. But as soon as they open up the economy and flights are coming in, the problem is there again. Because a lot of your population has not been infected yet. Right? So they're going to catch it. So this has to be eradicated worldwide if you really want it to go away. And that's going to take time. So since we are broken up into countries with borders, you have to coordinate now across the whole world.
And that's one of the prerequisites for actually solving big issues like war, is to start
or even climate change,
breaking down the national psyche, that everything's all about our nations. I mean, it's the same as the environmental movement. It's all done through nationalism. So your economy is independent to each nation. So who's first? Who's going to compromise their national economy?
That's
we need to be people solving problems rather than nations.
Right. That's why Mother Earth, through this virus, has destroyed everybody's economy. Not just one economy. Everybody's economy has been destroyed, right? People are only buying essential things now. So now we know what is essential, what is essential. All these movie theaters are closed. All these things that we really didn't need have been closed, right? So she shut it down.
And got everybody's attention.
Yeah, she got everybody's attention. We're all looking at that virus now.
It'll be an interesting tug of war between escapism and, I mean, so many people wanting to learn more. And Kelly wants me to go watch Contagion tonight because we'll sleep better after that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen it?
There is something called R0, which is the infection factor, right? How many people do you infect if you're infected? And so pretty much you can simulate from that point on. You can simulate how fast it's going to spread through the population. And, and we know that any R0 greater than 1, it will keep growing. It will keep growing and growing until it reaches everybody. Any R0 less than 1, eventually you can shrink it. Okay, because you're infecting less than one person once you're infected.
But it's not, is it?
No, right now R0 for COVID-19 is about 2.5 to 3. Okay, and so that's the simulation that the Imperial College has done to show how can you manage this. And what they showed is that if you don't take any measures, if you try to have the economy growing as it was, it is going to flood your hospitals with 30 times as many patients as you can handle. Okay? Which means if you flood your hospitals with 30 times as many patients as you can handle, the death rate goes through the roof. It's no longer 1%. 1% means that your hospital system is working very well. Okay, so then your mortality rate is 1% or 1 to 2%, which is what they found in, I think, China. But if your hospital system is overwhelmed, like in Italy, the mortality rate is more like 6%. Okay, that is huge. Meaning, if Trump gets his wish and everyone opens their economy and we all start trading again and the virus takes off, you're going to kill 500 million people in 1 year. That's downright stupid, right? So we have to sort of regulate this, regulate the infection rate so that we are not overwhelming our hospital systems. Because we also have, a limited number of doctors, limited number of nurses, and they're also catching the virus. Okay, I mean, a lot of them caught the virus in China. China, they were able to handle it because it was mostly in one province. And so they could get doctors from other provinces to come and help out. So they increased the number of doctors in the province. So they increased the number of nurses, and then they built hospitals within 10 days. Okay? So to handle the load. And they could go and manufacture as many ventilators as they wanted, right? So they could do that. So that's how they handled it there. But here, it's happening in every state. So you cannot take doctors from Texas and move them to New York, because Texas also needs doctors. And it is already overwhelming the system in New York. People are exhausted. Doctors are exhausted. Nurses are exhausted. So which means you will need people being trained, not as nurses, trained just to handle a COVID patient. How do you handle a COVID patient? Okay, that's a simpler training. So you need people to be trained for that, volunteers to be trained for that, they're going to be our frontline people who are going there and, risking infection in order to help out with the stress that the doctors and nurses are having.
Wow, that's kind of hinting at a breakdown of institutions.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of something that Lee Camp was talking about. Why do we have police for everything? To give parking tickets, to settle domestic disputes, to fight crime with armed assailants. They do everything. Why is there nobody specialized, and everybody needs to be trained in the most violent methods, and you just have violence for every solution?
That's the system we have. Okay, the system we have is about checks and balances. What is checks and balances? Checks and balances mean people are fighting each other. That's what it is. The role of the media is to yell at the government, right? It's not about cooperating with the government, figuring out what's going on, right? It's not. There is no adherence to the truth anymore. There is no openness in the society, right? So you have to have a transparent, open source system before you can really build the structures based on the truth. So long as you don't have that, if you have private property, this is my secret, not your secret, it's a system built on lies. Because people are lying about their property. They don't want you to know what they have, right? So it's a system built on lies and built on oppositions, on competition. This is exactly what Gandhi pointed out 100 years ago. That's the Western model, he said. And it is not sustainable, he said. That time, he said that.
This is blowing my mind a little bit, because you're saying that this crisis is causing more truth to come out.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think in a crisis, because like what Naomi Klein calls the shock doctrine, governments get away with so much when we get scared of things.
Right.
This isn't being scared of something that's a vague shadow puppet. This is something to really be scared of. So now they can't they can't lie, or they can't lie about the value of things that aren't really of value to you when you go shopping. They have to start providing the things that we absolutely need.
Right.
And so that's a totally different way of seeing things.
Right, it is, yeah. Because you cannot deal with the virus by telling lies. Right? I mean, the virus is going to just jump from person to person. You have to know the truth. So it's forcing us to see the truth in everything we do. Taking care of our poor people, taking care of our sick people. It's forcing us to do that. It's forcing us to have universal health care.
And the truth that we've truly moved out of the industrial era where everybody had to, pull their weight because there's so much work to be done. Now there's more work than there are people, and yet there's still this, say, model of scarcity that doesn't make any sense anymore. So now we have to decide, how do we keep people alive? How do we make this work without all the extra nonsense?
Right. Yeah. So we won't have time for other things. We will have time just to take care of ourselves, grow food for ourselves, take care of our sick, because people are getting sick in large numbers, right? And that's what this is doing. 10% of the people have acute illness. So you can get the mortality rate down to 2% or 1%. If you have enough doctors who are sucking the fluid out of their lungs and are doing all these things, to prevent them from dying.
And as much as I've been paying attention to it, it's always these problems that they exploit and turn into money-making opportunities, like the immigration crisis that they just turned into a money-making system where, like, detention centers, privately owned detention centers, where capitalism going rampant on something that it should be a problem to be solved, not monetized. We've got lots of money as such for this system, but a lot of it goes to military. Now, what does military mean? What does military spending mean? What does, how do you use the military? They're starting to be mobilized in different capacities that have nothing to do with military, right? Even that's being redefined.
Okay, I have to get going. Thank you all so much.
Yes,
Yep.
thank you so much.
Sorry, I let go of my facilitator duties because this was such a great conversation. Thank you all for your time.
Yeah, we'll wrap up the meeting now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got some stuff to follow up with you, Ray, on, and Jackie too.
And
And
Jackie,
Shankar.
if you need help with anything that you're working on, and Shankar will talk to you about
And thank you all so much for what you're doing. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Everyone stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe. Yeah.